Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about four different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that light, I'm always interviewing people doing things on the cutting edge and impacting the world. So today we have Ella Heinck, and she's a soul coach. She's an etheric healer, which is really interesting. I want to delve more into that, as well as an energetic strategist. So, for especially for professionals, how we manage energy and where it manifests is going to be really fascinating. So I'm really happy to have her on the show and welcome her. So Ella, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris Liu. It's amazing to be here. I'm so excited to share some of this energetic mind stuff, healing stuff with you all today.
Yeah. And you can, all my friends call me Chris, so do the same. And so tell us more about yourself, your background, and how you got started.
Thank you, Chris. So myself, I reside in the Kootenays in Castlegar, BC, in Canada. And really, I got started through this my entire life. Ever since I was a little kid, I was really privy to different spiritual influences. I could see and sense energy and always had this really strong healing capability. So as I grew up in life, I really started to dive into that. I got my master level of Reiki. I've trained under shamans. I've studied a lot about science and biology, even epigenetics, and how this all fits together and how energy and healing can really assist and shift our lives so we can just step into our most authentic, true possibility.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of what they soul coaches, energy coaches, shadow is, I find this area very fascinating because you talk to, like, someone in their 60s, they underwent a lot of trauma, they're really energetically heavy. They could be like really lean and fit, but they're heavy. But then you have, like, talk to kids and they're like light and free. So tell us more about this energy and manifestation.
Definitely. So everything is energy. Like our cells are constantly vibrating, even solid state cells are shifting really slowly. And so we pick up energy from those around us, from our emotions, from our life experiences. And this can actually get stored in our cells, which can then shift our bodies and start to manifest as dis-ease or disease. And so a lot of our health symptoms can even be a result of our life experiences and our trauma stored in our bodies. And one of the reasons why kids can be so light and, fluid is because they don't hold on to their energy. They don't hold on to their experiences initially. When they're a kid, they, have a temper tantrum, they get frustrated, they yell, they scream, they cry, they stomp. They let this emotion flow out of their bodies. But then as we grow up and we become adults, we start learning that, those outbursts aren't appropriate. They're not, allowable. And we start storing all of those emotions. We just cram it deep down inside. And we start spending so much energy to, keep those emotions locked up that then we can't properly respond to life situations. We start reacting instead of responding, and we store all of this stuff in our bodies. And now we're just acting out of a place of survival rather than of flow.
Yeah, very, very fascinating. And so how does this tie into what you call etheric healer? What is that? What is that?
So there's different, I guess, vibrational fields that we operate in. We have our physical field, our physical body, and then there's your etheric or spiritual body. And this is the vibrational quality of your energy. And so with etheric healing, we're going in, we're recognizing what emotions have been stored in your body, what vibration your cells are vibrating at, what like field they're holding, whether it's anxiety, depression, whether it's just vibrating at that slower rate. And we're actually energetically transforming that property of your cells so that way they can start vibrating at that higher rate. And therefore, you can start having those higher qualities of peace, of freedom, of flow, and just allowing those things in your life. So it's really working on an energetic level And then once you heal that energetic quality, that energetic level of your body, that can start then showing up in the physical by releasing a bunch of your different health symptoms, by releasing stress, releasing anxiety, releasing depression, because you're now vibrating at that higher rate.
Mm. And how does like what are some of the, you don't have to spill that, but what are some of the things to you do as a energetic strategist to help clients vibrate at a higher level?
So that's where it really comes down to an individual level, obviously. I do have a few different tips that I will be sharing with you guys as to how to do that. But some of the different ones is like a gratitude generation exercise where you're learning to feel and receive and accept different levels of gratitude. So often we're so closed off to receiving because we've only ever received these negative things. So by shifting that mentally and allowing you to open up and feel those things mentally, you can then be more open to receiving them in real life. Another one is by different tools and strategies to release your emotions when you're feeling them, releasing them in a healthy way rather than having, a temper tantrum like a kid. And so teaching them those strategies, how to release those emotions so they're not stored in their body. Even different breathwork tools, fidgeting exercises, all that sort of thing to help shift your mindset from that place of being stuck or of repeating old patterns into new healthy strategies so you can release those emotions that are occurring, you can feel them, you can honor them, but you don't get them stuck within you.
Yeah. And when they say, when you use this term stuck, and what is the, like, why do emotions become trapped, and where do they become trapped, and why do they become stuck?
I feel it's definitely because they've never been recognized or honored in your body. So, for instance, if when you were growing up, every time you encountered a certain situation, you were never actually heard or you were never validated, you can start to feel anger. And so, because you were never heard or validated, you're going to come across situations in life where that might come up, and that anger that you were never allowed to express is going to keep manifesting itself. It's going to keep showing up. And so if you can then finally sit with that emotion, transform it in a healthy way, being like, okay, I see this anger, it's coming up, from whichever situation, whenever it came, whenever it occurred. You don't even necessarily have to get into when it first occurred. We don't have to revisit trauma. You just have to revisit the fact of, I have this anger that's been occurring. I see this. I understand why why I'm still feeling this way, and allowing it to flow through you. Then when you come into that situation again in the future, you won't necessarily have that anger that's boiled up like a volcano, that's, showing back up in your life because of past situations. Kind of like with, post-traumatic stress disorder or anything like that, where you continually get re-triggered, and so you're continually reliving those emotions. But now we can release those emotions, honor them, and then they won't keep recurring.
Interesting. Yeah, this is quite interesting. And then you talk about four common predicaments that arise to be shifted in etheric healing that regular energy modalities or therapy may fail to cover or transform.
Yes. So one of those is obviously um, dealing with suppressed emotions, emotions that are stuck. We won't necessarily like dive into that. Another one is also ancestral trauma, because our genes can carry a blueprint as to the environmental influences that affected our parents, our grandparents, that sort of thing. So our genes can actually shift based upon those environmental influences, and that gets then passed down to us. So if we don't actually look at, what that was, then, we might not even understand why this is occurring. We might be like, I've never experienced this situation in my life, so why do I keep getting triggered by this? But it could actually be due to something that you experienced way back in the past. Another instance is even when your mother is carrying you in the womb, her own emotional trauma, her own emotional responses, if she didn't have a emotionally stable pregnancy, those different emotions can actually directly be be directly passed on to you as well, where those situations can then start coming up and affecting you.
Interesting. So, I think we've talked, kind of got a really good idea about energy, and so a lot of the listeners are entrepreneurs, business owners. And so, what energetic methods can assist in recognizing and overcoming self-sabotage?
Well, with self-sabotage, the biggest thing is recognizing who and what you have been forced to become. So as we grow up, we can have influences from our teachers, from our friends, from our parents that's like, you have to be this certain way. Like you have to be, for instance, a lawyer when you really wanted to go and be an artist, just as a broad general scheme. Or, you have to be seen and not heard. And so oftentimes we can have all of these beliefs and perceptions that are running in our background, in our subconscious mind. So then when we come up with instances where we have to have confidence, we have to have self-esteem, we have to be able to speak up because of these beliefs and perceptions that have been imposed upon us, we're going to have this block against actually speaking up for our own self. And we start speaking up from where how others have told us to. And so this can lead to self-sabotage because then we don't feel worthy. We don't feel like we deserve it. We feel like, that's not who we actually are. You can come against imposter syndrome and all those sorts of things. So by diving into the energetics of why that sabotage is occurring, we can transform that so then you can step into your authentic self.
Interesting. And what are some energetic strategies listeners can use to defeat overwhelm in business and personal life?
So a few strategies with that. One of them would be what I call mindful movement. So when you are feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling really angry or you're feeling really insecure in your business decisions, you honor that emotion and then you allow it to be released in your body. And you can do this through yoga, through weightlifting, even just by going for a walk. And you picture as you're putting that energy into that exercise that you're actively releasing those emotions that you want to release. And that way it empties them out of your body mentally and vibrationally. So then once you're done your walk, you're like, okay, like that is gone. Now what do I want to implement into my body? I am secure. I am confident. I can do this. And you have that space now to, shift that vibrationally.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like how you turn your attention and your mind into movement. And is it possible to identify where like a layperson through, I don't know, through meditation or something, to identify where the trauma lies, like if it's in the shoulder, neck,
Definitely. That's a very good question. So with my coaching and mentoring programs, I do teach people how to tap into their own intuition, into the divine, so that way they can have that connection to be able to just ask themselves, okay, where is this energy stored in my body? However, obviously that can be a process, and the regular person might not always have that innate sense of intuition and connection. So in the beginning, I always combine my energetic healing or my etheric healing with, those tools so they can continue themselves in the future. But I myself can then lead them into a meditation in their body, tapping into their alpha brain waves. So that way they can connect with that emotion and then they can ask themselves in that, or I can sense it for them where it is, and then we can transform it together.
Yeah, it very interesting. And how can energy work assist in scaling someone's business?
Yeah, that's another awesome question. The fact is, business can actually come down a lot to energetics, like what we believe we can achieve, we can then end up achieving, right? If you only think you can hit a certain level because, you've never accomplished that before, then you're going to have, then you can achieve that level. But if you're like, oh, I could never be a millionaire, you're likely never going to be able to do that because you're going to block yourself. So with etheric healing, we can go in and we can shift those beliefs. We can help you recognize what is possible. You can open up the expansion of yourself. The other thing too is our own brains are actually neurologically wired to prevent us from achieving new situations. So if they're primarily wired for against fear. Like new is bad in our brains, and we'll actually come up with situations that stop that explain why we can't achieve that situation if it's new, if it's scary. So we can energetically transform that situation so it doesn't seem scary, so you can more easily implement the action steps to achieve it that you wouldn't have been able to have done before because it felt so scary.
Yeah. And is that done through like is through visualization or meditation, or what types of
Yeah, definitely. So it can be done through a variety of those things. That's where I say I'm an energetic strategist, because I can figure out, I'm really good at perceiving situations, seeing like what is the why that's occurring behind why you're stopping. And so then I can go in and be like, okay, this is why you're stopping. So this is what we're going to do, whether it's feeling more gratitude, whether it's releasing fear of scarcity because you grew up in poverty, whether it's just simply being able to have the capability to hold that much energy to like calm your nervous system to be able to hold this next step of your business. And I'm able to give you strategies along with doing the energy healing to actually transform your vibration and release those fears so you can step into that.
Yeah. Really interesting conversation. How do people follow you on social media, contact you, reach out to you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Opal Dawn Beauty. I do have, for the listeners today, I'm offering 40% off one of my etheric vitality enhancement sessions. So that's a 60-minute session where we get to go in, dive into some of those different things that are holding you back, some of the different ways that you might be responding instead of reacting, or some of your past traumas that you're holding on to, preventing you from getting that next level of success in your business. So we go in over 60 minutes on Zoom to really work on that together, as well as providing you with some energetic strategies to continue the work yourself. So there should be a link for that shared in the feed here on this page. But you can also find me at opaldawnholisticbeauty.com. And on my website, I share all that information. And I also have a free workbook that really helps you start energetically recognizing those perceptions and beliefs that are holding you back and help you transform those. It's a really powerful resource.
Yeah. And for all the listeners, let's thank Ella for really providing really concrete knowledge about, very such a broad topic. And be sure to follow her. She's on Facebook, Instagram, as well as check out her resources. And she's got so many Instagram has so many interesting posts as well, so check that out. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was amazing to be here.